the story of Satyakama. So, Namaskar again and welcome to Devakshar. We are coming here with the live streaming of the story of Satyakama. Do you know who Satyakam was? This story is from the Chandogya Upanishad. So, let's start this story. There was once who lived a boy who was called Satyakam. So he's saying, Mother, I wish to lead the life of a student of religion. Please let me know of what lineage I am. So said Satyakam one day to his mother Jabala. With the single exception of his mother, he had none to depend upon. She too had none to support her except her beloved son. They were very poor and they lived in a small cottage on the outskirts of a village. It was situated in the neighborhood of a dense forest. The blessings that nature confers so bountifully on all, the murmuring sound of the brook flowing nearby, the melody of the bird voices, and bright light of the sun and the mild beam of the moon were their only treasures. The unexpected question of the boy caused a deep stir in the mother's heart and awakened memories of his past. They brought to her mind dim recollections of the painful past which she has taken so much pains to forget and which laid hidden in the unconscious. Tears filled her eyes as she narrated her story. She said, she had married young, and all her time was taken up in serving her master and lord. And when he passed away, all her affections were centered on her only child. She was too young and inexperienced in the ways of the world to inquire into her husband's gotra, nor did she remember the gotra of her own parents. For here again, in the beginning, she was too young to know, and later on, there was no one to enlighten her. She had never imagined that all that was essential in order to lead a virtuous life. She said to herself, my strength is as the strength of the 10, because I am pure. Relying upon the innate power of truth and wishing that her son should be truthful of all times and owe to truth wherever victory he gains in life, she asked him to return to his teacher and introduce himself as Satyakama, the son of Jabali. It was not mere intellectual curiosity that impelled the teacher. Tradition demanded that only those who were brahmacharis and who had been Brahmins and formally invested with the sacred thread could proceed to the study of the Vedas. Such a person approached his spiritual preceptor, offering his obeisance, and as he saluted him reverentially, proclaimed the name of the rishi who were their prodigies of his lineage. That was why the teacher wished to be enlightened on the gotra of Satyakama. After having obtained such meager information as was available, Satyakama prostrated at the feet of his mother and with her blessings started hopefully on what was for him the great journey of life. His mother looked on with wistful eyes until he faded in the distance and then turned around. She wiped a teardrop from the corner of her eye. All that she could do was to pray to the Almighty that all obstacles might be removed from the path of her son. Towards nightfall, Satyakama approached the hermitage of the renowned sage Gautama. He had been specially selected by sages Haridruman, the father of Gautama, as being specially suited for tapasya. Situated as it was, far from the crowded cities, amidst picturesque and beautiful scenery, it was eminently suited for the pursuit of truth and the practice of perfection. The murmuring brook that flowed nearby was the chosen haunt of the spotted deer, the peacock, and other denizens of nature. As Satyakama approached the hermitage, he could discern the sacrificial smoke arising from the altar of the hermitage, and he could hear distinctly fragment of chanting of the Vedas sung by the brahmacharinis in chorus as the light evening breeze wafted the sound towards him. The setting sun imparted to the evening sky an unearthly radiance. As Satyakama approached the ashram, he saw the cows against the setting sun returning home to the ashram after the day's grazing in the field. He caught sight of a few brahmacharis gathering certain flowers for the next morning oblation to the Agni. As usually, the seeker from Brahmagyan approaches the preceptor with samit in hand. He too gathered a few twigs, joined the brahmacharis, and went with them to the ashram. As he was weary with the day's journey, he was allowed to take rest at the guest house, and after the evening prayer was ushered into the presence of the preceptor Gautam. He offered his reverential obeisance to the Guru, placed his samit at his feet as a token offering, and sought initiation into brahmacharya as a step to attain Brahmagyan. As the sage Gautama was very much pleased to see such an eager aspirant after spiritual learning, he silently blessed him and asked him for his provisions. The boy did not know what Gotra he was, and he merely mentioned what his mother had told him. The inmates of the ashram who claimed descendant from various rishis and from 5 rishis from such cosmic entities as the sun and the moon looked on with a suppressed sense of derision. The sage realized the gravity of the situation and looked benignly upon the boy whose love of truth was visibly revealed in every word that he spoke. The liberal-minded sage was pleased with the calmness and purity as well as with the beauty and sincerity of the boy. Satyanishtha is dharma, said the sage, as if to silence the voice of criticism, and then he said to the boy, Brahman is truth, and therefore every truth seeker is entitled to know Brahman. According to the connotations of the term, the Brahman is he who knows Brahman. So that is a Brahman. Who is a Brahman? The one who knows Brahman. Tomorrow I will have you initiated into the path of Brahmacharya. On the next day, Satyakama was invested with the sacred thread, which is the insignia of Brahmacharya. His mother's blessing acted miraculously. His long-cherished desire to study the Vedas and attain knowledge of the Supreme now lay within the possibilities of realization. With prayer to Agni to lead him along the auspicious path, he began his new life. After the initiation, the preceptor ensured Satyakama with the charge of 400 cows and asked him to return to the ashram when the 400 had multiplied into thousands. 1,000 cows it had to become. Satyakama gladly accepted the charge and set out for a remote part of the forest where the beneficent hand of nature might supply all that was required by the way of abundant pasture and translucent water. It is interesting to note what an important place the cows occupied in ancient Aryan economy and how their very social organization is called a gotra and the head of the state is called a gopa, the preceptor of cows. The place selected by Satyakama was eminently suitable for the practice of meditation. In the silence and solitude of nature, it was possible for him to be in tune with the infinite. According to the instructions of his spiritual preceptor, Satyakama practiced a life of austerity and prayer and observed the daily worship of Agni. Under his personal care, the cows began to thrive and they increased in numbers. Days, months, and years passed in severe austerity. Although in the beginning he was homesick and frequently thought of his mother, he became so completely absorbed in his new life of prayer and meditation that all earthly things were banished from his mind. The wind that sweeps on the mountains and the fire at the sacrificial altar had become his daily friend. One day, the god of the wind spoke through the biggest bull and said, Satyakama, we are now 1,000 strong. Do lead us to our master at the hermitage. Although he was a little tired after the day's hard work, Satyakama was not a little pleased at the unexpected call to return to the ashram. He verified the fact and found that his cattle wealth had grown to 1,000 strong. Vayu, the presiding deity of the wind, was pleased with Satyakama, who had practiced such prolonged tapasya and had rendered devoted service to his guru. By way of rewarding him, Vayu offered to initiate him into the preliminary aspect of knowledge of Brahman. When Satyakama expressed his willingness to be instructed, there came a voice which said, Know that of the 4 cardinal points, north, east, west, and south, are all permeated by Brahman. Meditate on Brahman as the luminous consciousness which permeates all the directions. By meditating on Brahman as the luminous consciousness, one becomes illumined in life and after death attains the reign of the shining ones. Lest he should think that he had no more to learn, the voice added that what he has heard was only the first quarter of Brahman, and that he would receive further instructions from Agni. On the next morning, Satyakam performed his daily rounds of duties and started cheerfully for the hermitage of Gautama. The happenings of the previous evenings had changed his outlook. The entire face of nature, including the bright sun, dense forest, the creepers bending upon their loads of flowers and fruits, and the translucent river murmuring nearby, seemed to radiate a divine light. An indescribable sense of happiness that he had never been experienced before seemed to pass into his being. As nightfall approached, before he could reach the ashram, he arranged the cows in a row, lighted a dhuni of sacred fire, and sat for meditation. Then he heard a voice as though Agni spoke to him. The voice said, Earth and heaven, as well as what lies between them and what lies below them, those two forms another aspect of Brahman. That is why Brahman is meditated upon as anahata, infinite, and beyond all that is emergent. Having been thus instructed, he came to realize that though the whole universe is steeped in the light of Brahman, there is really no limit to that glory. The face of Satyakama beamed with the glow of Brahman, whose glory said vastness he felt everywhere. Although Satyakama walked the whole of the next day towards the hermitage, he was still far from the goal. At the approach of dusk, he halted for the day, arranged the cows in a row, and as was his usual for him, sat before the sacred fire for meditation. This time, he saw a white swan flying past. He felt instinctively that the swan, the symbol of the pilgrim's soul, had some significant message to convey to him. It was Aditya in disguise. The swan said to him, It is the light of Brahman that shines as Agni on earth, as the sun and the moon in the heaven, and as lightning in the intermediate region between heaven and earth. They are not different entities. They are all aspects of Brahman. Meditate therefore on Brahman at Jyotishman, the illumined. He had so far been instructed on these aspects of Brahman, that Brahman is eminent and permeates all quarters, that Brahman is transcendent and no amount of finality can attain the infinite, and also that whatever is great and glorious shines only by the presence of Brahman. On the next day, as he was recalling to his mind all that he had learned from these three instructors, a water bird flew past him. It was prana, the vital breath that came to him in the form of the bird to instruct him on the ultimate aspect of Brahman. As long as he seeks Brahman only outside, his knowledge will still be incomplete. He now learned that the vital breath, the eyes, the ears, and the mind from the Anahata, the abode of Brahman. He thus came to realize that Brahman is everywhere, that there is really nothing to be done in order to acquire it afresh, for it is not a piece of furniture of the mind. He also learned all that is necessary to be realize it. And the easiest way of realizing it is to realize it in oneself. He also came to realize that we remain strangers to Brahman only as long as we remain strangers to our own true self. He who went out to tend cows came back the conqueror of the kingdom of knowledge. He had realized that Brahman is eternal, that Brahman does not depend on anything else, and that Brahman manifests himself as the inner and outer nature of entire universe. The peace of Brahman passed into the very core of his being, and he felt that his life's mission was fulfilled. Calm of mind and all passion quenched in the glory of the knowledge of Brahman, Satyakama hastened to the ashram to offer his salutations to his preceptor and to render back to him the charge of the thousands heavy, well-fed cows. He mentally compared the gloomy dusk when he first came to the ashram with fear at heart, lest he should be denied the privilege of being accepted as a brahmacharin, with his present situation when he was returning to the spiritual home and as the accepted disciple of the great Gautama. When the sage saw that the light of Brahman was visibly shining on the face of his disciple, he said to him in a joyous tone, "My boy, you shine like one who has realized the truth. You look cheerful. I see a smile on your face which indicates a calm mind. Has anyone instructed you in the knowledge of Brahman?" True to his nature, Satyakam said all that had happened and how the element forces of Vayu, Agni, Aditya and Prana had instructed him in turn, each one of them on one aspect of the fourfold nature of Brahman. Although he felt happy that he was blessed by the presiding deities of the cosmos, he wished to be formally instructed in the knowledge of Brahman by the sage, for one's initiation is not complete until one is instructed by a guru who has realized Brahman. The sage Gautama, for his part, found in Satyakama a fit disciple, worthy of being initiated in the knowledge of the Absolute. It was thus that, blessed by his mother, by God, and by his guru, Satyakama became verily the thrice blessed. Hope you enjoyed the story. Do stay tuned to Devakshar. We'll come back with more stories like this. Do subscribe to our channel and visit us more often. Thank you so much for being with us. Namaskar.